This is a how-to training video today on how to weed eat. Okay, you can check out my other videos on the other services in a regular lawn care maintenance, which includes edging, mowing, blowing. But this particular video is on weed eating. Weed eating, or some call weed whacking, is very essential for making your yard look very professional. And if you are a lawn care professional, then you must include weed eating in your service. So first of all, most of the time I come to the mailbox first. Make sure that as you go around the mailbox that you get all the areas again that the mower will not get. Because if you weed eat and you only weed eat a little small area around the actual post of the mailbox, but you fail to get the entire area around the mailbox that the mower will not get, then when you go back and mow, if you did not weed eat ahead of time, then you're going to have to go back and weed eat again. So make sure you really do a good job at looking out for all the places that the mower cannot get. A lot of times the corners of yards, depending on what is around it or in the yard, you'll have to make sure you weed eat. So make sure you get around the mailboxes, light posts, street lights, power lines, all of those types of things. Make sure you weed eat around those, and if they are close to a border area where the mower cannot get, make sure that you weed eat in between all of those areas as well as around the poles. Weed eating around the house or a building if you're doing a commercial property. Weed eating around the house is essential for making the grass look professional. Now, one thing that you're going to need to learn when you first start out, especially if you start with the first two steps of edging and weed eating, is depending on the height of the grass, you're going to have to be able to estimate making a nice weed eating level cut or level weed whack around the house and the other perimeters, which you will get used to. Of course, if you have those tall grasses, you're going to need to make sure that you don't weed eat and scalp the ground. You're going to want to make it pretty level with the mower deck, and you will get used to this again. Some people actually like to mow first and get their grass height and then go back around and weed eat. But I prefer not to do that, as I mentioned in the regular lawn care maintenance video. When you weed eat after mowing, then the tall grass that you have just weed eated shoots out and spreads around the yard, and it looks very bad. So I always like to weed eat first, especially if the grass has not been maintained and it's your first time showing up to the property. So make sure that as you weed eat, you need to keep in mind the type of grass and make sure that it is level. Sometimes I will actually scalp the grass just an inch or two out away from the house. Now make sure as you're going around the house that you get around all of the different obstacles that might be in the way of the house, air conditioning units, any type of cable lines or anything like that. You're going to need to be careful watching out for those things as you go around the house. Another thing to consider as you're weed eating is around trees. Make sure as you're going around the trees that you do a very good job not to get too close. You don't want to mess up the bark on the tree and cause damage to the health of the tree, but you do want to weed eat. I do tend to scalp the areas around the trees and the roots and I do not necessarily keep those level with the grass also. just depending on the type of yard it is. I tend to most of the time try to scalp around the tree bases. Okay. Other things to consider with weed eating are ditches. This is huge with customers. I've driven by many properties, commercial and residential, where someone will do a pretty good job cutting the grass and even weed eating and edging, but if it has a huge ditch in the front area and you see the grass growing all the way up in the ditch and they did not weed eat that ditch and keep it maintained, then that can also make it look very unprofessional and very bad. So make sure that you weed eat your ditches. A lot of times around the front drain areas of the yards that have ditches, make sure you weed eat around those also. Another thing to consider is any yards that have fences, make sure you weed eat around those fences as well. Now, chain link fences can be a pain when you're weed eating. So as you are weed eating, a good tip to consider, especially on chain link fences, is to start from if you're facing the fence, start from the left side of the fence and you work your way down to the right side. Again, if you're facing the fence, left to right, start on the left side. And if it's a fence that goes around the entire yard, you'll just start in one corner and work your way, face the fence, work your way right. So you're going to start left, work your way right. The reason why I always do this is because the way that the weed eater line turns, it actually turns clockwise. So if you were to turn the weed eater head up, it would turn clockwise. If you lay it face down, clockwise is spinning to the left. So what you're wanting to do when you're weed eating the chain link fence is you're going to want to go with the flow of the string. If you walk the opposite way while you're weed eating, you're going to be going against the circular motion of the string, and you're going to wear down your string a lot more. It's just going to whack up against the fence and it's going to wear it down a lot more. So make sure you go with the flow of the string. Weed eat around the edge of the fences. If you leave that, that is another area that is going to look very bad if you do not weed eat the fences and maintain the borders and perimeters. Now, also, you're going to have some stone border areas around mulch bed, pine needle beds that people will have, and you're going to want to weed eat around those perimeters. Stone or wood edges or borders, make sure you weed eat up against those as well. Okay? So other things to consider are just bushes that are not surrounded by any type of mulch or pine needle bed. Bushes that are just right there in the grass, make sure you weed eat underneath those bushes. Juniper bushes, many people like to have on their hills. Make sure you weed eat up anywhere the turf goes to the outside. Really, any perimeter area of any turf that you are cutting, you're going to want to walk around and make sure you have weed eated, or if there's an edge for a curb, driveway, sidewalk, road, obviously you're going to want to edge it, but any part of the perimeter of your turf or grass that you are maintaining, you are going to want to either weed eat or edge. Okay? Another area that is essential to consider that I've seen a lot of lawn care guys miss, and I did this when I first started my business as well. Make sure that you weed eat all the grass on the actual road or the edge of the curb on the other side of the curb from the turf. So not just the actual turf edge that runs alongside the sidewalk or driveway, but any grass that has grown up in the actual corner of the road, or also many driveways have little gap runs across for the cement that will begin to grow little weeds and grass up in between those cracks and crevices in the driveway and the sidewalks. Any grass that has grown up or creeped out over into those, you're going to need to make sure that you weed eat those back as well. Okay? So as far as weed eating, make sure that you do a very good job at this. When you do a good job weed eating, the customer will really know and will appreciate it. The neighbors of your customers will come, and I promise you, you will get business when you do a good job weed eating, because the neighbors come over and they know how good of a job that you are doing at detail, and they're going to want their yard to look just like it, because most people do not have the time or don't really know how to do the detailed cuts and maintain a lawn properly. Most people that do their yards on their own pretty much just mow the grass, and sometimes they might weed eat or edge maybe once a month or every so often. A lot of people don't even have the right equipment or do not even know how to properly weed eat or edge. So make sure that you do a very good job on your weed eating. Okay? Now, also, one thing to consider is if you have a hill area anywhere in the yard or on the side of the yard that is too steep for your mower to be able to cut, you're going to need to be able to weed eat the hill also. So weed eating hills is a very good idea. If the hill is more than about 35 degrees, I would say weed eat it. You can watch my training video on how to mow a hill. You are going to need to make sure that you watch that video, because if you try to mow a hill that is above 30 degrees angle, you are going to ruin your mower if you do not mow it correctly. You can tip the mower in the wrong direction and mix your gas and your oil together, and you will actually ruin your mower eventually by doing that. So make sure you watch that video. But if you have a hill, I would say above 35 degrees, then you are going to want to, most of the time, weed eat that hill. And there's going to be many properties, especially if you are a lawn care business owner, that you will come across where there are steep hills, and you are going to need to be able to weed eat those. Now, this pretty much wraps up as far as the weed eating training video